one of the great comedians that Chappelle, and I don't know if he learned this from him, and I'm sure other comedians did it as well, but for me, in my understanding of the history of comedy, like, is George Carlin, in terms of doing this mix of like making really, really strong social commentary, along with like fart jokes and sex jokes and having all those layers. But then also this thing I want to show in this clip is being that voice of that, like that worst voice, like in representing that worst voice that we have in our heads, and putting it out there, for us to laugh at. And so here's an example of that.
I'm not interested in the budget. I don't care about tax negotiations. I don't want to know what country the fucking Pope is in. But you show me a hospital that's on fire and people on crutches are jumping off the roof, and I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy guy. I'm a happy guy. I want to see a paint factory blowing up. I want to see an oil refinery explode. I want to see a tornado hit a church on Sunday. Hey, at least I admit it. At least I admit it. Most people won't admit to those feelings. Most people see something like that on television, they'll say, oh, isn't that awful? Isn't that too bad? Lying asshole. Lying assholes. You love it and you know it. Explosions are fun. And hey, the closer the explosion is to your house, the more fun it is. Do you ever notice that? Sometimes you have the TV on and you're working around the house. Some guy comes on television and says, 6,000 people were killed in an explosion today. You say, where? He says, in Pakistan. You say, oh, fuck Pakistan. So far away to be any fun.
So this is like one of the forms George Carlin often takes in his comedy. He's going on these kind of like long rants where he's kind of representing the worst of his society, and some of these like dark sides of us, and it's funny to see somebody talking about it, because you're just like, damn, fuck, it's unfortunate, but it's true, and this gets into some of the tension that you see with Chappelle, which is he says some devastating shit. Like, if you're a rape survivor, a Dave Chappelle show, I mean, I can't speak for rape survivors. I have a few. I have a few in my life. The Michael Jackson stuff, the Bill Cosby stuff, the OJ stuff. There is so much violence against women, like enacted or like called on in a Dave Chappelle show. I mean, there's like pussies getting kicked and punched. There's like an interview with a beat up pussy in one of his things. It's like, this is what he's calling it. There's just like so much going on. There's a superhero who activates his powers by raping people, which then comes back with the Cosby thing, right? Like, it comes back with the Cosby thing. One of the the things that he does that a lot of great comedians do is they seed things early in the set, and then they come back to them, and they become funny in and of their own, how he keeps coming back to them. And so, but one of them is like the 4 times I met OJ, and 3 of the times are like after the murder. And like the only time he's in those stories that he, like, if I remember correctly, that he's kind of disrespectful to OJ is like when OJ suggests that he and Chris Tucker take a photo with him. And so Chappelle's like, nah, and it is fine. I mean, of course you're not, like, I don't know. I'm not taking a photo with OJ Simpson. But like, other than that, it's like, yeah, really nice guy and blah, blah, blah. And he talks about how important Cosby was to him, and all this stuff is true. And it's very important, I think, to hear that stuff. But when you add it all up, hearing somebody go on about all the great things Cosby did and all, how he's hanging out with OJ, and I don't know, man, it's like, and it comes to almost be an obsession, like the violence against women, and like the amount of role it fills in terms of like the degree to which he represents this horrible voice in our head, to the point where we're like, oh, I'm still going to dance to Michael Jackson. Aziz Ansari did a better job of it, I think. For example, like when he went to the audience and said, how many kids does Michael Jackson have to molest for you to stop listening to him? And it's like this, getting at that voice in our heads. Where I think it's important to do that, and I think that's a really critical role that the comedians play. But it's a little bit worrying to me that how much violence against women fills Dave's world, in that sense.
Yeah, the Aziz question is interesting. He's kind of going right at the audience to say, think about who you think you are and your values and how it's being played out in your choices. And he's purposefully making you squirm. I think it's in the same category. And what you're describing with Chappelle, I see what you're saying. And it's something to consider. I wonder if there's someone in his camp that is able to articulate some of this. If he was listening to this podcast, how do you think he would respond to what you just said there?
I have no idea. I don't. My mind's not as brilliant as Dave Chappelle. I have no idea how he would respond. But what I want people to kind of like take from that point is that when people bring this shit up, or people say I don't like Dave Chappelle because of this and this and the other thing, like I don't to say like, oh, you're against free speech, or like, you know, oh, it's just a joke or whatever. I think that's just inconsiderate. Like, I don't think people should try to take Dave Chappelle away from those of us who really enjoy 60%, 70% of his comedy, and like it makes us die laughing. Like, I don't think like we should have to feel horrible people for doing that, and I don't think other people should have to feel that they're like against free speech or something for saying that like they don't think he should have this big of a platform, or they don't think that that he's funny, or whatever their opinion might be. I think everybody needs to just like relax a little bit on that front. You
know, the George Carlin clip, you know, is it, obviously it's just a clip, you know, does he go back and then humanize the Pakistani,
No.
you know, the people who had that, you know, Lenny Bruce before him was a big comedian who had to go on trial for free speech for the things that he was saying.
None of this is happening without
just
Lenny
like
Bruce.
curse words, you know?
Yeah. There's something about risk that makes performance interesting to begin with, and much not just comedy. Like, for example, if two people give the exact same speech with the exact same voice, but one of them's reading and the other one's not reading, it's like the one who's not reading is just inherently more interesting, because we all understand that there's a risk here, that they're going to forget something, that whatever, like that risk makes it interesting, you know? In the same way that these comedians take risks. And I think it's interesting to see how and where they decide to take these risks. And so, for example, like Chappelle takes a huge risk in one of his stand-ups when he says, you know, he's super cocky in that one stand-up, and he's like, I'm so good at this now. I just like come up with punchlines first, and I put them in a fishbowl, and I like go by and grab them. And so like the punchline could have been anything. Like, if he wants to show how great he is, like the punchline, according to his theory, like could be absolutely anything. But what's the one that he chose? It was like, and then I kicked her in the pussy. You know, like that's the one he chose, right? And then he goes like, and I'm gonna make that funny. And it's like, well, that's interesting that like in this game that you've set up for yourself, that like this is the thing, like of all the phrases you could have chose, like this is the one you chose. Whereas you take a look at like another comedian. So another comedian who took a perhaps even crazier risk in a recent stand-up was Aziz Ansari. And so Aziz Ansari like starts talking about like, oh, you know, everybody just respond. He's making a comment on technology and modern society, and how everybody has an opinion before they even know the story, and they know what they think about something just based on, you know, what their ideology is or where they see themselves on the political map. And so he gives this, he's giving examples, and he's like, remember the Domino's pizza?
You saw this with this whole Pizza Hut thing, right? Guy orders a pepperoni pizza. He gets the pizza. The pepperonis are arranged to look like a swastika. But now some people online are saying it doesn't look like a swastika. They're saying it looks like a regular pizza. So the internet is split. I saw it, kind of looked like a regular pizza to me. I don't know. What do you guys think? Clap if you think it's a swastika. Clap if you think it looks like a swastika. Okay, a couple people in the back. Now clap if you think it just looks like a regular pizza. Yeah. So you, sir, right here, you think it looks like a regular pizza? Yeah? And what do you think? This guy's just lying to get attention or something like that? Yeah. And do you remember where you saw it? Because it was in New York Times and Washington Post, but Washington Post supposedly accidentally posted a digitally altered photo. Do you remember where you saw it? You saw Washington Post? Okay. Well, you know what's interesting is I just made all that up. None of it happened. I'm not trying to embarrass you, dude, but You and everyone that clapped earlier, you're the fucking problem, okay? What are you doing? This is where we're at now. You think your opinion's so valuable you need to chime in on shit that doesn't even exist?
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah,
Nice,
like
okay.
this, like, and that was like like taking an incredible risk in a live performance. You know, just confiding in what you have been told about human psychology, and that this is gonna work. You know,
And it worked.
And it worked. And you know, he chose to use as his example, racism, Nazism, or whatever. And Chappelle, in a similar kind of joke where he's creating a game, basically, went with, and then I kicked her in the pussy. So like, all
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like I
Yeah.
totally understand people's, especially given how important he was to like our generation as a voice of conscience during formative years for us. To see him making these choices, it's I understand people's disappointment.